Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Stephanie and I am obsessed with personal development and tea. And what we're going to talk about today is mindset and how it pertains to you achieving your goals and creating the life that you've always wanted. Most people wait until they feel confident before they take action, and that's ultimately what actually leads them to feeling stuck. So, what can we do about it? Have you ever felt like you haven't pursued a goal or haven't pursued a dream because of the fear of failure or fear that you might get it wrong or fear that people might judge you? Yeah, probably. What it really is, it's a limiting belief. So, what is a limiting belief? A limiting belief is a deeply held conviction that restricts your personal and your professional growth. And the truth is, they're normally rooted in real life experiences that you might have had in your past. They were originally put on you to keep you safe. And now they're holding you back. So they've become this limiting belief, but they have this sense of reality to them because there is some truth to why the limiting belief exists. So we know what a limiting belief is. I think we've always heard, a lot of people have heard of imposter syndrome. We've heard of these things, but what do we actually do about it? And how can we change our small micro habits to really combat those limiting beliefs and start to rewire the brain? First thing is awareness. Awareness is going to be the key to any change you make in your entire life. And so a quick little audit is the best way to go. So what is a limiting belief audit? Well, you start monitoring and just paying attention to the patterns that you start to repeat to yourself all the time. And so generally this comes from the goal perspective is I don't have time, I'm too busy, I'm either too old or too young to pursue my dreams. I don't have the connections for that. I don't have the list could go on forever. And really those things, while they might be obstacles and challenges, they present themselves as truth. And what they really are is the obstacles that you have to move through to be able to go after that goal and to be able to go after that dream. So really just the awareness that they are limiting beliefs is really the first stage. So what I want you to do, I don't know, for a week, a couple of days, is to just start writing down the statements that you say to yourself that really aren't supporting you. So I'll give myself as an example. I remember early on in my career, I wanted to start a business and I was like, well, I'm too young for this. I'm too young for this. I'm too young for this. Plenty of people had started businesses that are younger than me. And so, while of course there's a challenge and there's different things that I had to work through, it is a limiting belief and something that I had to work through and really start to retrain myself, which we'll get to some exercises to retrain at the end of this video. But where I want you to start is really just start writing down and starting to notice those patterns within yourself. The second concept is this concept that you have to be confident before you start. I actually get this all the time. They're like, well, Stephanie, you're just so confident. No, no, no. Confidence is a skill. I remember I was terrified of public speaking as a kid. And I do public speaking all the time now. And I really just started putting myself in situations where public speaking became easier for me. I did not have the confidence. My confidence was built over time. So, really, while this might sound scary, it really is such a helpful tool because confidence is a skill. So, if confidence is a skill, how do you build it? So, if you're familiar with Brene Brown, she's fantastic. Check her out if you don't know who she is. She talks about this concept of courage. Courage is what leads to confidence. So, when you put yourself outside of your comfort zone and you start to make changes, that's when you build confidence. So, me putting myself in situations where I was uncomfortable speaking, speaking up at work, going on stages I didn't feel ready for, once I do it, my body and my brain are like, you know what? I'm safe to do that. You know what? It's really not that scary. And honestly, if we're going to talk about public speaking, which we could do an entire video on, the fear of public speaking is actually a greater fear than death. Just a fun little fact. And so I'd say if you can conquer public speaking, then you can really do anything. So the truth is, you don't have to be confident to start. What you do have to have is the courage to get started and to maybe feel uncomfortable. Okay, so if you're like, okay, Stephanie, I totally understand that courage leads to confidence. That's a great concept in theory, but what do I actually do? So if you've ever read the book Rejection Proof, If you haven't, definitely give it a read. It's fantastic. But really, what the concept's about is this guy was looking for investors and he was just felt so rejected. And he kept getting no's and no's. And he's like, you know what? I really want to conquer my fear of rejection. So what he did was he went on a 100-day challenge of searching out ways to get rejected. Like he would go to Starbucks and ask for a free coffee. He would do, I think he went to like one of the donut shops and was like, "Hey, can you customize this by like in 1 hour to do something completely random?" They said yes. And then he actually asked somebody to fly his plane and they said yes. And so the point isn't the saying yes, but the point is putting yourself out there in places that might feel like rejection. So while 100 days of rejection, that sounded a little ambitious to me. What I did was actually 30 days outside of my comfort zone. So I thought about things I wanted to do, but I wasn't doing them because of that fear of rejection. And so I remember during this time frame, I actually applied for a TEDx talk and I got it, which is crazy, but I never would have done it because I was like, "Oh, like I probably don't have enough experience. I probably don't have this." And my logistical brain is going through all of the reasons why I couldn't do it. And then I was like, "You know what? Why don't they say no?" So, something that you can do is think about what is one thing that you've always wanted to do, but you haven't done it because of your fear of rejection. And maybe you were waiting for the confidence. And if you're feeling extra crazy, you can actually do a 30-day challenge of going outside of your comfort zone. If you're feeling really crazy, I guess you can do 100 days, but I haven't done that either. Okay, next let's talk about the concept of growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And I actually use this one all the time with my training and leadership development clients because it is the one of the simplest shifts that you can make to start looking at life differently and looking at the workplace differently. And so what is a fixed mindset? A fixed mindset is somebody who believes that their traits are fixed, that they aren't able to be changed and this is just the way life is and nothing can change. And a growth mindset is somebody who believes in the power of effort, who believes that things can change and that their skills, their abilities, and things have the ability to grow and to learn and to overall improve. A fun little example that they did is they did this research study on children and IQ. And what they originally thought was that IQ couldn't be changed. And actually, turns out it's not true. They did all this research of the kids who had the high IQs had higher support, higher teacher parent encouragement. And so what they did was they started doing the same amount of support for the kids with the lower IQs. And what they found was their IQs actually improved. Now, I'm not saying they surpassed the kids with the naturally high IQ, but what it goes to show is that the ability and growth and effort have the ability to change. So if you feel like you're stuck in a fixed mindset, something that you can do is just like, what would be the growth mindset of this exact same statement? Which leads us to one of my favorite exercises, which is the reframing exercise. What it is you take a statement and you learn how to reframe it in a way that is still true to you. And so an example of that would be is I'm not ready for that promotion. The reframed version of that would be I may not have the skills for that promotion yet, but I have the ability to learn and grow and develop into that role. The biggest common mistake that you'll see in terms of the reframing exercise is you have to still make it believable. So if you say, I'm not ready for that promotion, and your reframe thought is, oh yeah, I'm ready for the promotion, but your body and your mind are like, absolutely not. You're going to feel a lot of resistance and it's not really going to be effective for you. And this goes to the same for affirmations as well. You have to make them believable while still shifting them outside of that negative mindset. Learning and growing and things of that nature. So let's use the example of I'm not confident, okay? And we're not really diving fully into neuroscience today, but what they've learned is that your neurons can be rewired. If you keep repeating that pattern and that thought pattern to yourself, that's what you start to believe. Sometimes it's really hard to switch it to like I'm confident. And if you don't believe it, your body's going to be like that's not true and it's really not going to have effect. Sometimes it can have a worse effect. If you've ever tried to do affirmations and you feel like nothing is changing, that might be why. So something you could say instead is, I'm learning to be more confident, which is still true and feels true to you, but you might not be at the point where you're like, I feel confident. So a fun little exercise you can do, and really just starting to notice how often you might say fixed traits, fixed abilities. Something that I hear all the time that I think is so funny is people always say, I never win anything, or things always go this way for me. And so you'll know it's a fixed mindset if it uses the words always or never, because usually that's not necessarily true. There's normally an instance, because people usually say it right after they win something. Oh, I never win anything. Well, technically now that's not true. And so it's really just anytime you use always or never, just be very careful of that language, because it can really cement you into a fixed mindset. If you are really enjoying this concept of fixed mindset versus growth mindset and the reframing exercise, we actually have a growth mindset workbook that you can download. It'll be in the link in the description. Definitely check that out. And the biggest thing I really want to leave you guys with today is that you don't have to be ready. You do not have to be ready to start. You don't have to be confident to start, but you do have to be willing to start and willing to be a little bit uncomfortable to get started, because that's where the real change takes place. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to check out our other videos on clarity and values to help you improve your life. Until next time, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on our channel. Cheers.